There are messages you open immediately, and then there are the ones you stare at, because you already know they'll change everything. Her phone lit up at 11:47 p.m. A message from him. She didn't open it. Not yet. She told herself it was nothing. Just a message. A line of words. But she knew better. She knew that some words carry weight. Some words once read can shift everything. And she wasn't ready for that shift. They had never called it anything. No titles, no promises, just moments. Small moments that felt big. Late-night conversations that lingered in her mind for days. Shared coffees that ended too quickly. Eyes meeting across rooms, holding for a heartbeat longer than was polite. It was never official, but it was always something. Something she couldn't name, even though she tried. Something that made her heart both ache and soar at the same time. She remembered the first time she felt it. The way he laughed at a joke only she understood. The way he noticed when she changed her hair. The way silence between them was never empty. It was full of possibilities she wasn't sure she wanted to touch. The message buzzed again. She could almost hear his hesitation through the screen. She saw the typing indicator, then it would disappear, then appear again. I don't know if I should send this. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Her chest tightened. Because once you open a message like this, there's no going back. On the other side of the city, he sat in his car, engine off, phone glowing in his hand. He had typed the words a dozen times, deleted them a dozen more. Every time he pressed send in his mind, fear stopped him. Fear of changing what they had. Fear of rejection. Fear of losing her entirely. He thought about her laugh, her late-night stories, the way she made ordinary things feel extraordinary, and he wondered how many moments like these would pass them by if he didn't take the risk. Back in her room, she finally unlocked the phone. Her eyes scanned the words. I think I've been in love with you longer than I'll admit. Her heart skipped, her breath caught, her mind raced. Because sometimes the hardest part of love isn't falling. It's realizing you've already fallen. And now you have to decide. Do you tell them? Do you wait? Do you pretend nothing has changed? She didn't reply immediately. She just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling the weight of everything that had been unsaid. Because love doesn't always arrive at the right time. But sometimes, just sometimes, it arrives exactly when it's meant to. And in that moment she knew, whatever happened next, her life would never be the same. She read the message once, then again and again. I think I've been in love with you longer than I'll admit. The words didn't fade. They grew heavier, as if each time she read them it made it more real. She'd imagined this moment, but not like this. Not quiet, not sitting alone in the dark with nothing but her thoughts and a glowing screen. Her first instinct was to protect what they had. The comfort, the ease, the version of them that didn't require decisions. Because decisions change things, and change is never gentle. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed slowly. I didn't know how to say this without ruining what we have. She stared at the words, read them twice, then deleted them. Ruining what we have. What did they have? A connection without definition. A closeness without commitment. A story paused mid-sentence. She tried again. I've felt it too. I just didn't know if you did. Her heart raced. That felt too exposed, too honest. Deleted. The silence between messages stretched longer than she expected. Each second felt loud, like he could hear her hesitation through the screen. Across the city, he sat motionless in his car, still parked, still waiting. When the typing bubble appeared, his breath caught. When it disappeared, his chest tightened. He told himself not to hope, that sending the message was enough. But hope doesn't listen to logic. Hope sneaks in quietly and refuses to leave. She leaned back against her pillow, staring at the ceiling, realizing something she hadn't let herself consider before. The fear wasn't rejection. The fear was confirmation. Because if he loved her, and she loved him, then pretending would no longer be an option. She sat up and typed again. This time, she didn't rush. Sometimes I think the reason we never said it is because we knew once we did, we couldn't pretend anymore. She paused and read it once. Didn't delete it. She pressed send. He read it immediately. Not because he was waiting, but because he never stopped watching the screen. Her message didn't scare him. It steadied him, because it meant he wasn't alone in this feeling, that the moments he replayed in his head weren't one-sided. He replied without rewriting it a dozen times. I don't want to pretend anymore. Her phone buzzed. She felt it in her chest before she read it. That sharp mix of fear and relief, the kind that only comes when the truth is finally spoken. She closed her eyes. Because this wasn't flirting anymore. This wasn't possibility. This was choice, and choices come with risk. She realized then, whatever came next would ask more of them. More honesty, more courage, more vulnerability than either had given before. But there was no going back. Because once almost becomes truth, almost is never enough again. After that message, nothing felt the same. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It wasn't empty. It was heavy, like the moment after a truth is spoken, when both people realize they can't take it back. She stared at her phone, waiting for the feeling to settle. It didn't, because now every memory replayed differently. Every laugh, every late-night conversation, every time she'd chosen not to ask the question she really wanted answered. She saw it all clearly now. They hadn't been avoiding the truth. They had been protecting themselves from it. He felt it too. For months he'd convinced himself that what they had was enough, that closeness without commitment was safer than wanting more, that staying undefined meant staying connected. But now that the words were out in the open, the undefined felt unbearable. Because love, once named, starts asking questions. What are we doing? Where is this going? What happens next? He typed a message, then paused. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because he knew exactly what it would mean. I don't want to lose you. She read it slowly. That one sentence carried everything he hadn't said. Fear, hope, risk. Her reply came after a long pause. I don't want to lose us either. Us. The word landed differently than she expected. It felt both familiar and terrifying. Because us implies effort. It implies uncertainty. It implies choosing someone even when it's inconvenient. They talked for hours that night, about small things at first, safe things. But underneath every sentence was the same question they were both afraid to ask out loud. If we cross this line, will we survive it? She admitted something she hadn't said before. I've been scared that if we tried and it didn't work, I'd lose you completely. He understood that fear better than she knew. Sometimes I think we're already risking that by not trying. The truth settled between them. Almost isn't neutral, almost is a slow erosion. A quiet way of losing something without ever really having it. She thought about all the moments she'd held back, all the words she swallowed, all the times she chose comfort over honesty. And she realized something then. Love doesn't ask for certainty. It asks for courage. He asked the question neither of them had dared to before. Can we stop pretending this is nothing? Her heart raced. This was it, the moment where everything shifted. She didn't answer right away. She thought about timing, about fear, about all the reasons people wait. Then she thought about the cost of waiting too long. I don't want almost anymore, she said. He exhaled, a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Neither do I. But even as relief washed over them, a new fear emerged. Because wanting more is easy. Building more is not. They weren't standing at the beginning of a love story. They were standing at the edge of one, wondering if they were brave enough to step forward. They didn't cross the line all at once. There was no dramatic moment, no grand declaration. Just a quiet shift, subtle, but irreversible. After that night, everything felt closer. Messages came faster. Conversations lasted longer. Silences felt charged instead of comfortable. She noticed it first. The way his name on her phone made her pause. The way her heart responded before her mind could catch up. The way she started imagining him in places he'd never been before. Her future, her routines, her plans. Because once you stop pretending, imagination has nothing holding it back. He felt it too. He caught himself rereading her messages, not for clarity, but for comfort, listening for meaning in the spaces between words, wondering if he was moving too fast, or not fast enough. They started saying things they'd never said before. I missed you. I thought about you today. Can we talk later? Small sentences, heavy meaning. And then there was the night everything finally slowed down. No distractions, no jokes, no safe topics, just honesty. She admitted she was afraid of needing him, of leaning in too far, of trusting something she couldn't control. He admitted he'd been holding back for so long that he didn't know how to stop. They laughed nervously at how vulnerable it felt, how exposed. Because crossing the line doesn't feel like confidence. It feels like standing in open space with nothing to hide behind. He asked her something quietly. Are we doing this, or are we just talking about it? The question lingered. She realized then that indecision is still a choice, and she was tired of choosing safety over truth. "I don't want to keep standing on the edge," she said. "I want to step in, even if I don't know where it leads." He didn't respond immediately, not because he hesitated, but because he wanted to make sure his words were steady. "Then let's step in together." There was relief in that sentence, and fear, and something fragile and real. They weren't promising forever. They weren't pretending it would be easy. They were choosing presence, and that was enough. But crossing the line doesn't erase uncertainty. It invites it closer. Because now there were expectations. Now there were emotions that couldn't be undone. Now there was something to lose. She felt it later that night, lying awake. The weight of the choice she'd made. Love doesn't announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly and asks you to be brave without applause. She wondered if they were strong enough for what came next. He wondered the same thing. Because stepping in is only the beginning. Staying is where the real work starts. Choosing each other didn't make everything easier. It made everything clearer. Once the initial excitement settled, reality stepped in quietly, as it always does. There were misunderstandings, moments of doubt, and times when fear spoke much louder than intention. Because love doesn't erase old habits, it exposes them. She struggled with letting herself truly rely on someone. Years of fierce independence didn't just disappear overnight. Asking for reassurance felt foreign, and admitting vulnerability felt like a huge risk. He struggled too, with overthinking everything, with worrying that one wrong step could send their world unraveling. He felt the immense pressure of wanting to do things right, to be perfect for her. They learned very quickly that choosing love once isn't enough. You have to keep choosing it every single day, especially when it's uncomfortable. There was one night they almost lost it all. A misinterpreted message, a pause that lasted just a little too long. Two people retreating into their old, familiar fears instead of leaning forward into each other. She thought, maybe this was the proof. That almost was safer. That wanting more always comes with this kind of pain. He thought the same thing. That maybe timing really was the villain all along. But something stopped them from walking away. It wasn't certainty. It wasn't a guarantee of a happy ending. It was care. They talked it through, slowly, honestly, without trying to win the argument. She admitted she was terrified of needing him more than she could handle. He admitted he was scared of not being enough for her. And in that moment of raw honesty, something softened. Because love isn't built on perfection. It's built on two people brave enough to stay when it would be so much easier to leave. They learned how to argue without disappearing. How to apologize without pride getting in the way. How to listen without already planning their defense. Not because they were experts at love, but because they were willing to try. Over time, the fear finally loosened its grip. The almost faded into the background. What replaced it wasn't some dramatic cinematic ending. It was quieter, and so much better. It was mornings that felt less lonely. Conversations that felt deeper. It was the incredible feeling of being known, not just halfway, but fully. She realized that love didn't take anything from her. It added to her. He realized that love wasn't something he had to prove. It was something he just had to show up for. They never forgot where they started. The unsent messages, the near misses, the silence that once felt safer than the truth. But now, that silence felt different. It felt shared. Because sometimes love isn't about perfect timing. It's about choosing each other when the moment finally asks you to. And sometimes the very thing you were so afraid to lose is the thing that finally teaches you how to stay. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please follow or subscribe if you would like to hear my next story beginning tomorrow.